welcome to part 2 of learning how to complete the square when it comes to quadratic graphs. We're going to try to look at 5 examples, and hopefully at the end of this video you will be a master at completing the square very quickly. Remember, this is my own easy method that I use. In class you will probably be taught a different method, but I'm not going to go through that method. I'm going to go through the quickest and most efficient method. If you become efficient at this, you will be able to answer such sort of questions in about 1 or 2 lines, whereas using the other method you might spend a significantly longer amount. So anyways, let's look at the first example. So we have y is equal to 16x squared plus 64x plus 81. Okay, the first example that we are going to look at. So completing the square for this function. Okay, completing the square for this function. Remember, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say y is equal to, and then we are going to take out the 16. Okay, so I just want to go a bit slower so that you do digest the method a bit. So the first thing we do is we take out this 16. We take it out and we put it here. And the next step is simply to put the x as it is. Okay, the x as it is. Okay, now the next step in completing the square, if you remember, is you are going to look at the coefficient of x. In this case it's 64, and then you're going to divide that by 2, and then you're going to divide that by 16. So if I take my Casio calculator, 64 divided by 2, that gives me 32, divided by 16, that gives me 2. Positive 2, because this is positive 64 divided by positive 2 divided by positive 16, so that's going to give me plus 2. Oops, it is, okay, that looks awkward, but anyway, plus 2. So that is the first step, and then I simply put my squared there. Okay, now the second step is, first and foremost, I'm going to put my negative sign. That is essential. That is essential for this entire thing. I'm going to put my negative sign there, and then outside here this plus 81 is going to go there straight away, so plus 81. Okay, remember that's the crucial step. Minus, and then I put my big brackets there, and then the plus 81 I planted there as it is. Now inside the bracket, what am I going to do? Remember, I'm going to take this 2, I'm going to square it, and then I'm going to multiply it by 16. So I'm going to say 2 squared multiplied by the 16. Okay, so this 2 square it, multiply by 16, this entire thing is negative, plus the 81 there, and basically I'm just going to simplify this entire expression. So my completed square version is going to look like y is equal to 16 x plus 2 squared plus 17. And that is going to be my completed square version for this answer. You can confirm this on your own by expanding this, which we are not going to do in this video, but at home you can confirm this and simplify it. So this is the completed square version for this entire thing here. This is how you complete the square for this particular example. Let's look at a less scary example. We're going to use smaller numbers this time. So this is example 3. So I have y is equal to 4x squared plus 16x plus 25. Okay, so completing the square for this, I should assume that it's quite simple now. So remember, I take out my 4 goes outside, and then I have my x. Okay, and then what do? I look at the coefficient of x, which is 16, I divide that by 2 and I get 8, and then I divide that by 4 and I get 2. I get 2 when I do that, so plus 2, and then the whole thing squared, and then my next step minus, I put my brackets there, and then plus 25, and the plus 25 is this thing, I just put it there as it is, and then inside here what comes in here, 2 squared multiplied by 4, so 2 squared multiplied by 4, and then simplifying that will give me y is equal to 4 multiplied by x plus 2 squared plus 9, and that is how you complete the square for this particular example. So your completed square version will look something like this. Finally, the last 2 examples, hopefully it's becoming a bit clearer now. Now let's say I have a negative coefficient, so this is the last example, actually, not the last 2 examples, this is the last example. So I have y is equal to negative x squared minus 2x plus 4. How do I complete the square for this? Well, the same process applies. I take out this negative and then I put an x here, but remember, I'm going to look at this coefficient here, which is a negative 2. This negative 2, I'm going to divide it by 2, and I'm going to get negative 1. But that negative 1, I'm going to divide it by this coefficient here. And this coefficient here is negative 1. So it's going to be negative 1 divided by negative 1. Negative divided by negative gives you positive. So this is going to give me positive. This is going to give me positive 1. The whole thing squared. So negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 is positive 1. So I'm going to get x plus 1 squared. Everything else is just going to be the same, minus, I put the big brackets there, and then I take the plus 4 as it is. Oops, I take the plus 4 as it is. And inside here, it's going to be positive 1 squared multiplied by negative 1. So positive 1 squared is just 1, multiplied by negative 1, I'm just going to get negative 1. So this, therefore, completing the square is going to be negative x plus 1 squared plus 5. Because, plus 5. Because this is negative 1, negative 1 multiplied by negative 1 is positive 1 plus 4. That gives us positive 5. So this is how we complete the square for this. So that brings us to the end of our video on completing the square. If you have any problems completing the square, just rewatch the video and understand everything that we're doing step by step, because it really is simple, it really is easy. Completing the square is probably the easiest section in this syllabus. This is going to lead us into the next part of the video, the next part of the series, which is going to be sketching quadratic graphs. How do we sketch that? We need to know how to complete the square in order for us to sketch the graphs of quadratic equations. So hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully you find this method easy. Hopefully you begin to understand what completing the square really is all about. And until next time, thank you.